After all the hubbub and bragging about the Trump Republican tax cuts, which would supposedly see almost everybody earning more in their paychecks from week to week, there's a new poll now that says a majority of Americans actually aren't seeing more money in their paychecks from week to week, the exact opposite of what we were told. This is CNBC's All America Economic Survey, and it finds that 52% of working adults have not seen a change in their checks that they're aware of, and I think that that's relevant. I'll get to that in a second. 32% say that they're taking home more money since the new tax law was enacted. 16% aren't sure. And we were told, remember, by Steven Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, that 90% of Americans were going to see more money in their paychecks as a result of the tax bill. And I admit that this is kind of a weird poll because when you look at the internals, first of all, just because you're not seeing more money doesn't mean you're not getting it. Some people don't pay attention to their paycheck from week to week. For some, the change is really, really small, so it's not like a noticeable difference in how much money you have left over at the end of the month. And even though employers were supposed to put in place the new withholding tables by February 15th, not everybody has, right? So like we use a payroll company, and the first payroll that we ran in February, or February 15th, whatever the date was, the new withholding tables were automatically in place, and everybody on our staff is seeing a little bit more money in their paycheck each week. But that's anecdotal, right? It doesn't tell us what's going on nationally. And anecdotally speaking, there are people who have also lost quite a bit of money on the basis of not being able to claim children in college. The question in the end is going to be, if you have a little more money or a little less money, does it make a difference in your life? For some people, it does. For a lot of people, it's not money that actually makes a difference. And if that's the case, then we have to ask, well, was it worth going through something so massive, an overhaul of the entire tax system, endless amount of time for our elected officials in the House and Senate and the president and staff, all for a tiny change for most people that allows the very rich to get drastic cuts and what will eventually be the effective tax rates that they pay when they file taxes for 2018 next year. And that gets to the other point of the poll. In the poll, of those who said we do have more take-home pay, only 38% say that the difference is enough to even be fairly significant to them. That's not exactly what I would consider a major victory. So the biggest question is major tax cuts, right? Major tax cuts for the rich. Tiny changes for some working class people, by and large, not life changing, hugely damaging to the economy over the long term. Is it worth it? I guess we'll see in a few years. And as far as whether it's a voting issue, we'll see in November.
Yeah, I'd imagine for most people, it's something like $20 per pay period or $50 per pay period. And,
Yeah.
I don't want to laugh at that
No, of
because
course.
That could be a lot to someone.
Yeah.
But for most of us, I think it's kind of negligible.
It's kind of touchy to even talk about it because as soon as you say these are meaningless amounts of money, you immediately hear the Republicans who advocated for this saying, how elitist of you to suggest that $20 a pay period for someone is meaningless. For a lot of people, if they're paid every 2 weeks, an extra $40 a month covers formula for their baby or whatever, right? Costco membership was the thing that Paul Ryan or whoever was talking about. We're not saying that $40 a month is meaningless to everyone. What we're saying is, in the grand scheme of how much money went into this, how it might affect other elements of the economy over the long term, and how much of these savings are disproportionately going to the very, very rich, the question is, does it make sense? Is it worth it, given that we're talking about $20 a pay period or whatever? It's not laughing at or minimizing that $20 a pay period for someone can be meaningful. It's talking about the entire cost of this thing and contextualizing it in terms of how much is going to go to the very, very rich and how much actually goes to the working class. Send me your thoughts. Send me, even just tell me on Twitter at @dpakman, have you seen a change in your check? Let me know. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. Show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. Today's program is sponsored in part by Shaker and Spoon, the monthly cocktail subscription box that delivers the craft cocktail experience right to your door. I selected the Death by Gin box for my recent delivery, and I really liked it. Open up the box. You've got a bunch of different ingredients that lets you make 12 total cocktails, right? 4 servings of 3 different cocktails, enough to last you an entire month. My favorite drink in the box was the Above a Persimmon, which I really enjoyed making. And this is a great thing because my knowledge of cocktails is so limited that I am basically relegated, if I want to make a cocktail, to grabbing seltzer water and combining it with vodka. And then if I have a piece of lime, lemon, or orange in the fridge, I'll throw that in. And the order in which I do that doesn't really matter. But if I were actually making real craft cocktails, the order of putting together the recipe does make a difference. And you learn a lot about mixing techniques and flavor combinations when using the shaker and spoon box. And for a limited time, you can get $20 off by going to shakerandspoon.com/Pakman. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we've put a link in the description below the video.